Welcome back, my special guest from the great city of Elizabeth, their mayor, Chris Bollwage. Let's talk about some developments, projects in Elizabeth. We understand there is a new parking garage in Midtown. Share with us how that came about.
The city of Elizabeth, the county of Union, and the parking authority all came together in order to do a parking deck with 1,500 spaces, some retail, $27 million, and without the cooperation of the Union County Improvement Authority, this wouldn't have happened. There's also Build America bonds in there. President Obama gave us some Build America bonds that we've been aggressively using, and that's been a great plus. And we need it in Midtown.
When's it going to be finished?
It'll be finished in September of next year.
Okay. We also have a federal designation of a transit village around your train station. What does that represent?
You know, the Urban Hub Transit Tax Credit, as well as designation, is going to help jumpstart some economic development with some housing, some condominiums, some retail. And the more people that live around train stations will increase the income tax and the sales tax for the state of New Jersey. So the Urban Transit Tax Hub credit is an extremely important tool for economic development in urban areas.
Are there other improvements that have been happening that you want to mention?
You know, we did the train station and converted it into a restaurant. We've done the square. We now have a kiss and ride over the train station. We're working New Jersey Transit on a bus terminal, clean energy buses coming into Midtown from western points. That's going to take a couple of years to develop, but New Jersey Transit has some great ideas, and we're working with them on moving them forward.
Now, speaking of transportation, I got to ask you what you thought of the governor putting the brakes on the ARC tunnel project that would have created transportation connecting New York and New Jersey. What's your reaction?
Well, my wife's a commuter, so it bothered her. I mean, she commutes to New York City for her employment, and clearly that would have helped in her getting to work every day, having a new tunnel. It puts the brake on jobs. That's probably the really bad part of it.
40,000 jobs.
Yeah, it's a lot of people going to work, and the governor just dismissed it because there was cost overruns. But if you look at it, and you got to sit down with the Port Authority and the federal government, and a true leader would never just cancel a project that took 15 years to develop. A true leader would have sat down and said, how do we figure out a way around this project? How do we make the cost factor fit? And how do we then solve the problem for New Jersey and put people to work?
It appears that the governor also missed a couple federal projects as far as money that could have come into education. What's your take about this? He feels there's a lot of waste in education.
Well, I mean, on that issue in the Elizabeth School Board, I tend to agree with him. I mean, we have a school board in the city of Elizabeth that clearly spends an awful lot of money on political brochures. They just mailed one out the other week. The difference is my Board of Education...
You said political brochures.
Well, they do. They send out political brochures about how great they're doing and how they passed an audit comparing tax rates. I mean, so they do these things, but the difference between the Board of Education and anybody else is they supported Governor Christie. So Governor Christie is never, ever going to go after the wasteful spending in the Elizabeth Board of Education because they're political supporters of his. Perfect example of is our superintendent, who was making $250,000 a year up until this year, was given a $30,000 a year raise to $287,000. So you see the governor go to Parsippany and beat up on the school superintendent in Parsippany because he's not a supporter, but I haven't seen him take to task the superintendent in Elizabeth.
Wow. Now, speaking of other educational partners you have around, Kean University, which really borders on Elizabeth. I understand there's some new or evolving relationships there. Share with us how you guys are working together.
Well, there's a small part of Kean in Elizabeth, so which is good for what we're trying to do. On Morris Avenue, between the train station and what's Union County College is one bookend, is a 2-year school, and Kean University at the other end. We're trying to build a university corridor on Morris Avenue to take in all of the Columbian businesses that exist there, as well as some land further up that could be redeveloped, and create faculty student housing. Kean is very aggressive trying to open up a campus in China. We could see exchange students living on Morris Avenue, eating in the ethnic restaurants, using the train to get to New York City, and then walking to Kean University. It's a vision, it's a plan, we're working to execute it, but it's in the long term.
It's going to be University Boulevard.
Well, we can't change the name of Morris Avenue. It's named after one of the founders of this country, but we want to connotate that in the city of Elizabeth as University Boulevard.
I want to talk about federal stimulus dollars that are drying up. What have you done in Elizabeth with some of these dollars? And I know everywhere I look, there's always some detour or road construction going on, which really we need to give credit to the president keeping people working on those roads. But how's it played out in Elizabeth?
First of all, President Obama deserves an awful lot of credit for the stimulus plan because it helped put people to work during the greatest recession since the 1930s. In Elizabeth, we were aggressive in getting about $22 million of stimulus money. We hired 17 police officers in stimulus money. We've used it to do a Verona Avenue sewer project that we just completed with the help of Kane University in solving some flooding issues. We've used it for road repavement as well as we've used it for aesthetics and new sidewalks in our Midtown section. We're using it at the train station in order to create availability for the Kiss and Ride in other areas. We've used it in the Build America bonds. We've used it in the Housing Authority. We've got $1.3 million in solar energy where we've done an audit and we're going to create solar panels on all of our municipal buildings. I'm a big fan of the president and the stimulus package.
I'm going to stay at the federal level for a few minutes or a few seconds. We don't have a lot of time left. But these midterm elections, were they actually a referendum on the president? What do you see happening? Is everyone going to have to sit down with the Tea Party soon? Or what actually happened in Union County or in your area?
The Tea Party's a phase. It's going to go out of existence in a couple of years. It's similar to Ross Perot in the early 1990s. They'll be a thing of the past. They're just a creation of the Republican Party. Somehow they get morphed into the Republican Party at some later date. I don't believe this was a referendum on the president. This was more of a referendum on frustration. People are upset with the gridlock that occurs in Washington. The only problem that people can't understand is they've rewarded the party of gridlock, which is the Republican Party. And what's really irate is the Republicans just held the president and the Democrats hostage in order to make sure they got a tax cut for the wealthiest citizens of this country in exchange for 13 more months of unemployment for those who are struggling.
And we actually know that the census report is in, and we're going to be looking at redistricting. Is there any great changes that you see coming up?
I don't know whether the state of New Jersey is going to lose a congressional seat or not. If that happens, then you'll see a lot of debate on where that will occur. I believe there'll be a lot of debate on the 40 Senate and Assembly seats, 80 Assembly seats in those districts. That has to be done first because their races are next year. The congressional redistricting doesn't have to be done to the end of 2011.
Seems to be a strong sentiment out there for just being anti-incumbent. Do you feel that or see that in Union County?
No, because our incumbent Union County freeholders won by a bigger margin than they won the previous couple of years. So I did not see in this election our incumbent Sheriff Ralph Froelich, who's been there since 1977. He's there 33 years, 11 terms. He won convincingly. Joanne Rajapi, our county clerk, who's been there for 3 terms, won convincingly. Our freeholders won convincingly. So the anti-incumbent fervor did not exist in Union County in the last election.
Now, we actually now, with a sitting Republican governor, even though we've been a real solid blue states, are the Republican gaining here in New Jersey?
No, I think that was an anomaly, that election. I mean, Governor Christie, I think if Governor Christie wants to win another term, he's going to have to figure out a way to tone down his rhetoric and be a politician and cut some deals. We see that in binding arbitration, but we need to see it much more going forward because this act is going to wear thin.
Running out of time, but a very brief answer. What's one thing we can look forward in a positive way in next year in the city of Elizabeth? One thing.
We want to get aggressive in economic development and creating jobs, and I think the Senate and the Assembly have put forth a package of job creation bills that the city of Elizabeth is going to be able to use to create jobs for our residents.
Well, I want to thank you, Mayor, so much for joining us here on Meet the Leaders. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Al.
And I want to thank you for watching Meet the Leaders. If you'd like to comment on this or any of our previous Meet the Leaders programs, please send us an email at clp3@cablevision.com. Thanks again for watching. Please join us again next week when we will meet a leader from your community. I'm Alfred Boynton.